welcome to Groundwork, a new podcast from McClanahan Corporation to talk about key material processing topics. From agriculture to mining to material recycling, we'll discuss the best ways to process the raw materials that power the world, because if it's not grown, it's mined. Thanks for joining us today for a very special episode. We are here to talk about AGG1, the largest aggregate show in North America. I'm Andrea Ritchey. I'm the Director of Global Marketing and Communications here at McClanahan Corporation. I've been with McClanahan for almost 14 years. I was lucky enough to find this role and join the industry right out of college. I've held progressive roles in the marketing department. I'm joined today by Mark Krause. He is our Vice President of Business Development for North America.
Thanks. Yes, I've been with McClanahan going on 11 years now. So it's been a good ride for the last 11 years. Prior to that, I worked for producer. I worked for other manufacturers. I worked for dealers. I've been lucky to see a lot of different aspects of this industry. And it's the only industry I've really ever known.
Yeah, I feel like, Mark, your knowledge of the industry well surpasses most people. So I'm excited to talk to you today about the show and about what AGG1 is. So I was going to kind of ask you to maybe start. You are serving this year as the chairman of the Manufacturer and Services Division of the NSSGA. So I think you have great insight into what AGG1 is and what its purpose is. So if you could just kick off and describe a little bit about AGG1.
Sure. Actually, I'm glad we're talking about this because it made me go back and think about what the start of AGG1 even was. You know, if you go back to in the 80s, we had NSA and NAA, which combined to join NSSGA. We used to have a Con Expo and a Con Ag, and they were in alternate years. And so those started to come together to have one big massive show, which became Con Expo as we know it today. But then at that time, we had individual meetings like operations meeting. We had automations conferences as part of NSA. And all of those were geared more towards the operator. And then we got to where the Con Expo became more for engineers, purchasing people, owners, that kind of stuff. And we lost anything geared towards the operators. And so it actually was Rick Feltus at the time, Feltus Sand and Gravel, that's been on outside of Chicago. And he got this idea to have this, what became AGG1, and it really was an education session geared mainly towards operators so that we could sit around and talk about education things that meant the most to them. We found out through all the different feedback we got from the different conferences we had, sessions we had, that operations were the ones that always got the most attention. So that's kind of what it started with. And then they said, okay, well, if you're not in the education sessions, what else can you be doing? Which they said, okay, let's have a little show. And it wasn't meant to be as big as a Con Expo. It wasn't meant to be anything like that. It really was first and foremost education focused, within a little bit of, I'll call it networking, showmanship on the side. And we've kind of morphed from there to where it is still very heavy education forward for AGG1, but it's become a bigger show at the same time. And it's going to be fun to see this year because it's the most floor space we have had at any AGG1. So we have more presentations than we've ever had before. We have more exhibitors with floor space than we've ever had before. And so it'll be exciting to see kind of how it all continues to develop.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Kind of hear the history, because I do feel like of all the shows McClanahan goes to, and we go to a lot. I mean, we've over 100 shows this year. The NSSGA and the AGG1 event have really come together to put on a great combination of education, networking, and the show. I feel like of all the shows we go to, it really plays well into that. And I know that I actually took your session before you came to McClanahan at one of my first AGG1s, probably 2 or 3 years in. I used to use the sessions for education as well, because being in marketing, you don't have a lot of background in the technical side. So I remember going to your session, the Crushing 101, probably one of the first, I think in Charlotte, maybe, which was one of my first years. So that was a good start for me.
My first presentation was an automation conference in 1984. That wasn't Crushing 101 at the time, but it's quite humbling to see how many people come to learn. But again, we take for granted that everybody's had some of the opportunities that others of us have had. I was lucky. I had a lot of good mentors along the way that taught us a lot of things, taught me a lot of things. And a lot of people don't get that opportunity anymore. So it's really nice to be able to give back and do that. But then I also look forward to AG1 because it's a chance to network and see people we don't see on a regular basis. You see them once every year, maybe once every 3 years. You don't get time at a Con Expo because it's so daggone big these days. There's just no time to visit with people. At least I feel people come to AG1 with the idea that they can spend time talking to individuals, renewing friendships, whatever they need to be, as well as the education sessions.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's one of my favorite parts of the show is I've been attending long enough now and have gotten a little bit involved in the NSSGA side of things through young leaders and some committees that when I go, it's much more, hey, how are you? How's your family? It's good to see you. Let's have lunch or dinner later. It's more catching up with people from a lot of different walks of life, people who've changed career fields and are still in the industry, but you get to see them there and you get to kind of see what's new. So again, I love that about AG1. And I think that's really, you get so many different types of people. A lot of the big aggregate producers will send everyone from safety and HR to financial people to your plant operators. So it's a very broad array of who's attending the event as well.
And I think we'll continue to see that expand. One of the newer tracks that we've added from the education session side of it is business management. And the whole management side of things, separate from operations and how crushers work or screens work or whatever. Or we've added the safety one that's been in place now probably for 4 or 5 years, a whole track just on safety. Now we've added the business management one, and that'll be interesting to see too, just as we see, whether it's women in construction, women in aggregates, or it's just business management as family members take over businesses or whatever it takes. It'll be interesting to see how that plays and continues to develop too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I get that a lot when I talk to people is whether it's the next generation coming up or just looking for that connection of how people looking to build relationships. So having that business side as well brings in a whole new dynamic. I think it's really great.
Yeah.
So Mark, I guess what do you remember? I know you talked a little about the history, but do you remember your first AG1?
I don't know if it's the first AG1. I'll say the first very memorable AG1. We were in Cincinnati. And we always joked about being in Cincinnati and who would ever come to Cincinnati and, whatever else you want to feel about that. But it snowed. And we're like, oh my goodness, you couldn't have a worse thing. Here we are in Cincinnati that nobody's going to come to begin with. And now it's snowing. And I remember it was one of the best AG1s ever because a lot of people drove in because we're at a time of year in March where a lot of plants are getting started and getting running and getting going and all the different things that go on that don't give them a lot of time to come to a show. Well, when it's snowing, they're not running. No, they had time to come to the show and spend with us there. And so I'll always remember that one. And for some reason, snow sticks with me when it comes to AG1s. The other one was in Indianapolis. And again, you might remember that my pet peeve is scooters. So I just throw that out there. But that's the first one. I remember people trying to ride down the street in the snow in a scooter. And guess what? They don't work in the snow. It's that. But, we've gone to some really big venues. You start thinking about the booth space we are. And if I remember right, we're about 80,000 square feet this year. If you compare that to Nashville, the last time we were there, I think that was 59 or 60,000 square feet. So we've increased that much just in the short time. And so it'll be exciting to see, we're kind of getting to that size where you go, are we getting too big? Yeah. But it'll be fun. I could go on about St. Louis. I love St. Louis. Of course, I have a son and a grandbaby there, so that matters a little bit. And if you want a restaurant, you got to go to Indo, INDO. There's my plug because my son manages that restaurant. But it is really good. And if you like Asian fusion, it's a really nice restaurant. I think St. Louis gets a bum rap. St. Louis is a great city. If you got kids, there is parks and museums and everything, and it's all free. And for adults, if you haven't been to the City Museum, go to the City Museum. It's an old warehouse that they took, and it's a playground for adults. And I think some of you have been there. You haven't been
not.
there? Goodness.
This is my first time in St. Louis. I've never had
It's called City Museum. You got to go. Okay. It's a fun playground for adults. Yes. Mm-hmm. So we probably weren't ready to talk about that, but I thought I'd just go there anyways.
Hey, that's fine. I'm going to have to figure out which event I have to sneak away from.
Yes, there's quite a few things going on.
For those who haven't been to AGG1, it's a very full week. We have Monday before the show is the Pitt and Corey Hall of Fame. Tuesday night of the show is Rock Pack. And then Wednesday night, which is typically the night a lot of the vendors and exhibitors have events. We are celebrating our 190th anniversary this year. So we are having a big event with our dealers. We're actually doing it at the Budweiser, the Anheuser-Busch factory, which I'm super excited about. I keep telling everyone we're having a Clydesdale photo op. So I'm really excited to kind of bring that and do that with our dealers. We've been doing this event with them for the past 3 years, I think now. And each year it's just a great time. It's great to see people that we connect with from all over the country. So I'm excited for St. Louis. And now I feel like I added another thing that I need to go sneak away and do.
No, it is. And there is a lot going on. We're trying to balance the National Stone Annual Convention with AGG1 and trying to make everything fit. So I know by being the chair of M&S division, Tuesday I have to introduce the CEO Roundtable, which is following Monday night, which is the black tie event for Pitt and Corey. Sunday night is the gavel exchange. Wednesday I have to introduce the Barry K. Went Award, as well as give the board report. I have Crushing 101 Wednesday afternoon. So I'll be ready for Budweiser Wednesday night.
It's a full schedule. Yeah. This is the third time we've had someone from historically related to our company inducted into the Pitt and Corey Hall of Fame too. So Ron Diedemeyer, who's on our board, is being inducted this year. So we're really proud of him. But we were part of the inaugural class with Samuel Calvin McClanahan. And then George Sidney, our former president, is a member. So it'll be the third time that we've had to attend that event to support our team, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, it's just a lot going on, and just got to keep schedule straight and just keep on moving.
Is there a fun theme for Rock Pack?
I don't know. They're going to have it at the Village there, right outside the ballpark. By the way, if you didn't think there was anything else going on in St. Louis, the Blues are playing Sunday night and Tuesday night in St. Louis, and the Cardinals open Thursday, opening day for baseball. So, yeah, if you want to have some sports fun, you'll have that going too. So the only thing I'll say is usually for opening day for baseball, it's usually cold. So expect it to be cold Thursday when we're at AGG1.
Okay.
But other than that, stay at the show. Then you can go over and see the game in the afternoon.
I think the show closes at 2.
It does close at 2. Yes, that's correct. And so the game's probably 1 o'clock, and we're right there. You're only blocks away, so it's easy to get to.
Well, of all those places you've been for AGG1, which has been your favorite stop?
I actually, honestly, I think my favorite AGG1 was Houston. And I can't, it was interesting because we had grown, we got so large. That's when we had different floors in the convention center.
I remember that.
Personally, I can say we had some challenges getting our booth in, and there's one of our marketing team whose name will not be mentioned here actually had to go commandeer a truck as it's coming down the street and trying to get our booth set up because they were late getting there. But it was a fun venue.
It wasn't me.
I know it was not you. No, but it was a new venue at the time. I had not spent much time in Houston. We used to be back in the Astrodome back in the olden days. And so there wasn't much that you thought was around there, but they had redeveloped that whole area. There's some nice restaurants. If I remember right, the weather was beautiful and it was a really good show. So but again, they were all fun, right? I mean, like I said, you get to go see people that you don't see regularly anymore, that, you kind of renew those friendships or like you said, what's going on with the family or whatever. You get to talk about work. You're in a booth. I love shows. So standing around in a booth is something I like to do. So just a lot of good things.
It's funny for me. Houston's probably very low on my list. I was very heavily pregnant at that show, and my hotel was 8 blocks away. So if we never went back to Houston, in my mind, it would be fine. But
right.
New Orleans. I do like Nashville a lot. It's always nice because the convention center is right there.
Nashville is. I mean, after Con Expo next year, we're going to New Orleans. I like New Orleans as a venue too. There's plenty of things to do, and generally the convention center is close to the hotels.
Yeah, I haven't been to New Orleans for AGG1 yet, so it hasn't been in a rotation when I've been here. So excited to try it out.
Yeah, so good places. Like I said, I can't think of a bad one, if you want to call it a bad one. Like I said, for some reason, we all thought Cincinnati was going to be a dud, and it really turned out to be a very successful one that I think got people excited about AG1 and said, wow, there really could be something. Because that was early on, like I said, and when we started, we didn't know if this was going to succeed. We really didn't know. We thought, okay, we'll have some education sessions and maybe something will come out of that. And it's morphed into where we are today. And it's very successful. It gets a lot of people. We'll get 12, 15,000 people this time. We had 18,000 in Nashville. That's a good chunk of people. It's not 125 like you did at ConExpo, which again is the reason why you get a chance to talk to people, because you're not fighting as many people to get in there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess you have so much going on at AG1. We just kind of touched on your schedule, which is extremely hectic. Which of those things are you most looking forward to? What are you super excited to be doing?
Gosh, it'll be fun doing the gavel exchange, just because it's been a good year. I've really very much enjoyed it as far as, serving on the M&S, and being chair and seeing what goes on. You really get to learn the inside of what goes on with NSSGA as an organization and the financials and what all matters and doesn't. And so that's been fun to watch, but it's time for somebody else to take over. I think 1 year is a good time for that. So I'll look forward to that. Other than that, I just love the show. I do love Crushing 101. I do get animated, but it is fun because you do get to meet people that have all kinds of questions, and it's always good to see. And, it'll be 100, 125 people, whatever it is. So that's always fun.
I know we're here really to talk about AG1 in the show, but NSSGA and AG1 are so integrated with each other. I think it would be fantastic if you could tell the audience a little bit about what you do as part of the M&S committee, what your role has been like. And I think you and I both serve on committees, and there's so much value in those. So I think we should just get a plug in here for NSSGA and getting involved and how important that is to our industry.
Well, and that's as far as the being the chair and part of the executive committee, that's the number one thing is member engagement we have so many people that want to help. And it's just trying to find the right place to help. And you can easily serve on committees, but it's just, what do we do? So a lot of what we do is just member engagement and making sure people are aware of all the different opportunities they can to speak or go to events or state associations or what it might be. You look at why NSSGA for us, or even why AG1, if you want to think of it that way. Number one is just networking, just getting around and talking to people and seeing people. If we learned anything, if you go through and go back, and this is a memorable AG1, and that was the virtual one that we did during the COVID years, which actually turned out to be quite successful. But I'm glad it was one and done, because we're still people that like to talk to people and see people and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. So number one for NSSGA and AG1 to me is networking. Part two then is the education side. And then the other part, the big part that I think NSSGA gets the most publicity for is the advocacy and, being politics of what's going on in Washington, D.C. and funding and all the things that go with it. But, for me, I always tell people, for me, it's more about the networking side of things than anything else. The advocacy we need to have, and we probably take that for granted, but just the networking and getting to see people and talk to people. And I say, I've been in this business since 1979. So I've gotten to know a few people, and, it's good to see some. And like you say, the Ron Dietmar and Jerry Bauer from EcoFab is going to be inducted to the Pitt and Coy Hall of Fame. I probably worked with Jerry 35 years now. And so it's good to see him kind of get the accolades as well. So it's just a great industry that way. But come on by, we can tell more stories at AG1.
Yeah, I think for sure I'm a little newer to the NSSGA committees, but it was those connections that, it's intimidating to walk into a room with all these people who seem to already know each other. Mm-hmm. And it was actually a connection that I had kind of made just as things had progressed with one of our competitors. Actually, she was leading up a committee. I thought, mm-hmm. I love Kristen. I love working with her. That's a great opportunity to do that. And so I think just as you build those relationships, it gets easier to get in the room and you get more comfortable. But everyone's so welcoming, regardless of if you've met them 15 years ago or if you've met them 15 minutes ago. So I think, if anyone's going and is interested in those things, just walk into the room. It's not as big a deal as it can feel like sometimes.
Yeah. Don't expect invitations. It's really just kind of casual, and you just show up, and if you want to work, you can find work to do. I wouldn't say that you have to be right up front the first time you go in, observe, see what's going on. You can try out any committee you want. I'm on the education and meetings one, which is where we talk about the different education sessions. And like I said, I've been that since we started AG1. I was on the education committee then. So that's why I say it's just fun to see all that grow and see what goes with it. And some of the things stay the same, right? It's been Crushing 101 and Screening 101 too.
Yeah. So, well, I think your passion for education fits in so well with what we do with McClanahan and why we have this podcast. We do a lot of webinars, we do our blogs, and we always push pretty hard for those. So we actually have McClanahan has 4 sessions this year. I think it's the most we've ever had.
We did have 5 one year because that's the max they would allow anybody to do. We got to where, it was only a few companies that were doing things. And so that's the other nice thing I think is that they're trying to make sure that everybody gets a fair chance to make a presentation and present their things. It's never meant to be a sales pitch by any means. It's really, truly education stuff. And I say, I can't think of anyone that I've ever heard somebody complain that it was too much of a commercial. That, we kind of look at it. We do have committees that actually look at presentations to make sure that they're not, making sure they're delivering the content that people want. So again, if you want to just get involved in making sure presentations at AG1 are the quality you want, you can get on the education committee. You can help serve.
Well, as a plug for McClanahan, we are doing Markets Doing Crushing 101. We are doing meeting specs with sampling, the right way and the wrong way with Adam Orner. Creating profit from waste, the secret to recovering more fines and making more money. That is Rick Madera, our director of sales for North America. And C&D Recycling Wet Processing 101 with Neil Mullen, who is our director of sales in North America for C&D processing. So if anyone listening to this podcast is interested in those topics, be sure to check us out during the week at those sessions. Again, the whole team from McClanahan, everyone at NSSJ, but specifically our guys at McClanahan, I know they do a great job of really trying to make it non-sales pitchy. It's really about how to make your operations better. So. And
one other additional plug I'll make is that if you do go to the sessions, you do later on get a link so that you can download the presentation. So if those people that come, a lot of people want to have the presentation afterwards, kind of review, see what was in there. You do get that opportunity to have that too.
So I guess, again, I would make a little bit of a plug for McClanahan here, but do you remember your first AG1 with McClanahan? Or do you remember any experience with McClanahan prior to being here at AG1?
Oh, well, lots of memories of lots of different things. I'd say more of my memories at McClanahan have been ConExpos and ConAgs because there's such a big to do and there's so much equipment and we know people love to come and see equipment. So I think more of those kind of things. The flip side though for me is, people will joke, "Wow, where's Krause working now?" It's not like I've jumped that many times. It's just, it is something when somebody sees you in a different booth than they used to seeing you at. It's kind of like, oh, that's where you are. Or like I said, when I worked for a producer for 8 years, I wasn't in that same venue, that same limelight, if you want to call it that. I was still doing Crushing 101, but it wasn't the same way as standing in a booth and talking to people on a regular basis. So I'd say the first one would be that one that, again, just being back in that position where people are like, oh, that's where you are.
Yeah, I know for me, it's been really interesting to see how all of our brands have progressed. So McClanahan has a whole family of companies now. There are a total of 5 brands. It's McClanahan, Eagle Ironworks, Rebel Crusher, Anaconda Equipment, and Diefenbach. So, not only has McClanahan's presence increased, but subsequently all those brands' presence have increased as well. So I get really excited to see that and kind of the growth and the brand recognition, how much more traffic flows into our booth these days, maybe just out of curiosity or than maybe it initially did. We don't take big pieces of equipment anymore, but we do represent our full systems through models, 3D models. So we're pretty excited to show those off this year. We have one of a plant that we did in the UK. It has crushing equipment, it has tailings equipment, it has wash equipment, and then we're actually going to be showing one with our hydrovac system, which is for more of the C&D sector, but is pretty cool as well. We do some unique things with with the hydrovac system, that some of our competitors don't do. So we're showcasing that as well.
Yeah, if I could just add that if you want a hot topic, something that's a little different, something new, because everybody wants to see something new, come learn about C&D because it's coming. You might think, oh, it's not coming. We've been recycling for 40 years. It's not like that's new. When we talk about, washing things or the hydrovac systems or soil contamination, those different kind of things that we're focusing more on because the market is asking us to get involved in those kind of things, is taking that knowledge, that experience that we have of processing and the equipment that we've used for years and applying it slightly different. But in an industry that is going to continue to grow. We've certainly seen it in Europe for the last 5-7 years at least. And now starting to see it make some inroads here in North America as well. So I'll put a pitch into Neil. If you want to see a smart guy that knows the stuff about C&D, go check out Neil. Not that we don't have other smart people, but I'm just giving Neil a good plug.
Yeah, Neil, when it comes to C&D, Neil knows his stuff and he knows the ins and outs of processing for that industry. So it's great to listen to him speak as well, in addition to everybody else.
And then beyond that, you talk about my 11 years here at McClanahan. We've grown quite a bit. I came here right after we had bought Eagle and we bought Universal. And so, I was kind of helping to get that established at the same time. But then, adding on the other brands of Rubber Crusher and adding CMB and adding Diefenbach and those things, we've continued to grow somewhat through the acquisition, but it's just natural bolt-on things to what we do. And so it's just kind of been fun to watch some people progress as we go. Our product lines progress as we go. Dealer network progress as we go. It's just all of that adds to that reach of why people come check us out.
Yeah. And we are promoting a new patent pending feature that flows across all of our brands with Diefenbach at this show. So we are launching a patent pending easier way to change the filter cloths on filter presses that is going to drastically reduce time, maintenance fees, building sizes, safety. Yep. There's so many great things about it. So we're going to tease that it's a patent pending feature, but we will have more information on that at the show. We're going to be talking about it. Again, we have BAMA and Expo coming up. We're going to be demoing it at a few of those shows in the next few months.
Yeah, if you want to look at something that can increase your runtime and decrease your downtime, come check it out.
We do have a launch. We AGG1 isn't always. I feel like people save launches sometimes for Con Expo because it's such a big thing. So we do have a pretty exciting launch that we think will really revolutionize a lot of things about filter press usage.
I was going to segue into say something about press event too. For the press people that are watching this, you can come on by. We'll have our press event. We'll tell our stories. And again, it's also good to see them once a year because I don't see some of them on a regular basis either. So come on by too.
Yeah. And my role has progressed. I really started working with media. When I first started, I was doing a lot of the advertising and public relations, really hands-on in that aspect. And so I built a lot of great relationships with these people. I'd see them in different things. So I don't work with them as much anymore in my current role, because there's other people that are more hands-on in those aspects. So again, for me, seeing the media people as well, is always, again, it just goes back to those connections. Like there's nothing you can really say about AGG1 other than it goes back to the opportunity to make connections and continue to build your relationships in an industry that is a very tight-knit industry.
Very tight industry. Yes, it is. And so you get to know a lot of people. It's like I say, been industry I've been in since 1979, chances to get out of it. If you want to ever confuse a headhunter, just ask them, what if I like the industry I'm in? Because they don't know how to answer that because they're always looking for you to get out and do something different. But it is a great opportunity to be in part of a network, a great group of people. Whether, again, I'm lucky this year I get to go address young leaders, which I'm looking forward to a lot, which again is kind of making that connection between, I guess I'll call myself the old guard and the up and comers. But a lot, again, I've been lucky that I've had a lot of mentors over the years, a lot of good mentors over the years that taught me a lot of things. And it's, again, just another chance to give back. But, I know I'll be welcomed very nicely down at Young Leaders. Age has nothing to do with it or anything like that. It's just, again, it's just the ability to share what we do and get excited by what we do. Again, there's nothing wrong with getting excited about crushing rocks. I know there's a lot of people in this world probably that can't understand that, but I get excited about that.
It's funny. Because I'm married to someone who also works in the industry. So it is funny. We'll be traveling down the road on vacation. We're like, oh, what's that? And what's that? You get very excited. You really care about it. It becomes a topic of interest to you. So it's definitely gets ingrained.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of neat facets of it. You look at the different things we do. If you just come to our booth and we're going to talk about whether it's Rubber Crusher, talk about Diefenbach, you talk about all the different things we do. There's a lot of things that not only touch our industry, but also other industries. You take what we do, for instance, in agriculture is a direct result of what we've done in mining and aggregates for years. And so it's taking what we know, it's kind of like the C&D, taking what we know, what we've done and expanding into different marketplaces. Because again, we have people that know their stuff, that know how to make that equipment do what it needs to do in those different applications.
Well, you touched a little bit on St. Louis again, already, but, I'm excited to go to St. Louis for the first time. But you have quite a bit of experience there. So you give a plug for your son's restaurant.
Did that, but I also say, Ken, you have the arch. If you've not ever gone up in the arch, you have to go up in the arch. And so it's probably not as fancy as you might think. The ride is kind of rickety. So if you're claustrophobic, you might get a little, but it's a great thing to do and look over and see what a real feat that is, the engineering feat it is. And the park around is really nice too. St. Louis is doing a lot to try and fix up their downtown. So there's different things. If you want a casino, there's a big casino right there, right by the convention center. You can go into, I think it's Hall 7, formerly known as the Dome. But a week after we leave AGG1, you'll be able to see the St. Louis Battlehawks play in the UFL in that same arena that we got to show it.
I mean, that's a fun fact that people might not know about the space that we're in, about its former usage.
Yeah, the Edwards Jones Dome. As a matter of fact, I'll say that I actually saw Brett Favre beat for most yards thrown ever by a quarterback in St. Louis when the Packers were playing the St. Louis Rams in those days before they moved to Los Angeles. So there's a fun fact too. Yes, but there's a lot of things. There's a lot of nice restaurants down there. Architecture is fantastic because, again, it's an old river town. So if you like architecture, there's plenty to see there. Between downtown and where we get to the brewery, you're going to find a wonderful old neighborhood there. They do a lot with Mardi Gras, so they just had a big event there. They do have Major League Soccer as well. So a lot of different things you can do. But, again, if you just got kids and the weather's nice, Forest Park and Tower Grove Park are two fantastic parks to take. And Forest Park is actually bigger than Central Park in New York.
Really?
Yes, it really is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's just so much. It goes on and on. There's a couple of golf courses there. There's a zoo there. It goes on and on. So again, I'll just say that's great things, especially if you got kids, and so much of it is free. Mm-hmm.
Well, Mark, if you ever leave the aggregate industry, I feel like you could work for the city of St. Louis as tourism department because you just sold me.
Yeah,
my next vacation.
No, and I'm going to guess that it actually will have good attendance. Again, it's very drivable from so many different cities, or whether it's Chicago or Kansas City or Little Rock, Arkansas, or whatever. It's all drivable. So I anticipate we'll see quite a few people that we might not have seen out of Nashville or, when we get down to the Southeast. I think a lot more of AGG1, again, because it tends to be more operators and that kind of stuff, are going to come in, drive in, stay a night, see the show one day or the next, do their education sessions and go home. It's not like a long commitment of time. It's not like you're giving up a whole week or something like that, like a Con Expo, which stretches on forever. AGG1's over pretty quick. It's Tuesday and Wednesday and part of Thursday and you're done. So it's really not a big commitment. So that's why you see people come in and maximize their time, because they're going to get their education sessions in. They're going to get to walk the show. You may not get to see everything on the show anymore just because it is getting bigger, but you make sure that you get your meetings set up and you go out and spend a little time talking to people and see the things you want to see.
Mark, thanks so much for your time today and for chatting about your AGG1 experiences. If anybody wants to stop by and see us, we are booth 4001, but we are also right inside the door. Hopefully, as soon as you walk in, you'll see us. Based on our spot, you can't miss us. And we'd like to invite you to stop by and meet our team. Come to our sessions, attend any NSSGA committee or conference session. Again, you're going to get a lot out of them. Get involved, make the most out of your time in St. Louis. But we'd like to thank you for listening to the Groundwork podcast. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcasting app for new episodes every other week and more content. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.